Hi, everyone. My name is Don Smith with take number 223, I think. I'm an instructor with the Springfield Museums. I'm very fortunate to be able to, and kind of humbled to be able to offer my services to them and share what I know about art that I learned from the Maryland Institute of Art. And I continue to learn every time I'm teaching with some of the people that are taking courses and the other instructors. Graduating from the Maryland Institute of Art, it's a very academic, disciplined environment. So I appreciated the a la carte yesterday with Peter Trippi when he talked about bark and discipline. And the important thing that he talked about that was important to me was the reemergence of academic art that had been lost, that history of the late 19th century, from Gérôme to Borgerot to now bark, that are being rediscovered and reapplied. It's become fashionable again. And in the Maryland Institute of Art, these were basic disciplines that were taught to us. You can verify that too. Another teacher that's awesome, an awesome artist, Doug Gillette, he and I both graduated from the Maryland Institute of Art and have that same classical academic training. How two people from the Maryland Institute ended up in Springfield Museums, I have no idea, but it's been great camaraderie. One of the things that Peter talked about yesterday was the ability to see the discipline. And what bark does is it teaches you to see, and there's a difference between just looking and actually seeing. So as we get into the gallery and we start to measure and compose and look at the anatomy and we break it down, we'll look at drawing anatomy is really no different than drawing anything else. Setup, still life, I know some people will kind of, take exception to that, but it all requires the discipline of measuring, of composing, of the basic disciplines of art. So with that in mind, while we have time, this is a quick video. Pause now if you want to, because we're going to take a test. And I need you to grab a quick pencil and a piece of paper and be ready to go for a very quick test that we're going to take on observation, looking, and the difference between and how illusions, we have to create that three-dimensional world on a two-dimensional piece of paper. And we're going to rely on every trick in the book to do that. So pause, get a piece of paper, pencil, and I'll be right back after I awkwardly change these screens when we share our content. So we're going to share the screen while you pause, and now you're back. I didn't pause, so I'm looking at the clock and I'm going to continue to go. Anatomy, drawing from the basics. When we break down drawings, exactly what we were talking about yesterday with Peter Trippi, it's measuring, it's composing, it's using those geometry, the math side. When we talk about left brain, right brain, none of that matters. It's our entire brain working together in harmony to make sure that we're drawing, we're measuring, the analytics involved. And we're going to do that in the gallery. We're going to get into some of those things that require discipline. I've told the story before. When I was a child, my mom had me take guitar lessons, and I found out I had to count and do it. I'm like, what? Doing math with music? I'm not doing it. So I quit. And the guitar teacher said, Miss Smith, is there anything else your son would like to do? And lo and behold, I started to draw. So with that, seeing artistically doesn't happen automatically. We must constantly develop our powers of observation, Eugene Delacroix. And that's what we're going to do when we start to. We're really going to have to not just look, but to see. And if you grabbed your paper and pencil, very quickly draw that for me. And we're going to whiz bang through these, but these are quick. You should just be able to give your first initial intuitive look. Draw that for me. That's referred to as the top hat illusion. And look at this very quickly. How many of these are 90-degree angles? Red, green, blue, and yellow. You will see that some of those are 90 degrees. Is all of them? None of them? One of them? Very quickly identify the one that's 90 degrees, and that's important to know. And this, very quickly, you'll see that there's 9 dots over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How many number 1s do you see? I'll give you a hint. How many number 2s do you see? How many number 3s do you see? So these numbers here, and you can pause at any time you want to, those should total 9. So if you take a look at that, how many 1s, 2s, and 3s do you see? The reason we do that is because when we took a look at that illusion, we don't measure, we make assumptions. If everyone who drew this, I bet you 9 out of 10 people drew this with the red circle farther to the bottom of the triangle. How does that matter? When we're upstairs in the gallery, almost everyone measures it incorrectly. and they don't have room on the piece of paper to draw the legs because they're looking at the top part, the most mass of a figure, and that happens to be the top part, and we draw it with never having the legs long enough. That's always a mismeasurement for us. And what we have to do to correct it is measure it and identify the center. And if we measure this to this without relying on intuition, you will see that we get it right every time. Same thing with the portrait. When we turn that triangle upside down, if we were to look at the portrait, the dot's going to go closer to the top, meaning that we have all face, no head. We don't measure, and we wonder why our drawing of Uncle Fred doesn't look like Uncle Fred, because we didn't measure. There it is, drawn correctly by Gauguin, because we were able to put it together, and you can see how one is a little more accurate than the other, the subtleties of measuring. The top hat illusion, if anyone drew this correctly, you will see the bottom is exactly the same, the width to the height. Why does that matter? Everyone that comes into the gallery, including me, when we draw heads, hands, and feet, they're automatically smaller because we have made that assumption, because we see the top part of that and not the whole entire length. And to prove it, we take a look at this. That's the way that it should look. And when we get upstairs in the gallery, look at the Michelangelo from the Medici tomb. We take a look at the foot, and we take a look at the leg. Almost everybody who comes into class for the first time will draw the foot probably that big. So paying attention and measuring, we now have the angles that we're all looking at. Believe it or not, the only one there that is 90 degrees is not 90 degrees, is the blue one. In essence, none of these are probably 90 degrees, but it's the position that they're in. So we want to make sure that we're looking at things from our point of view and seeing it from our point of view. The red is 90 degrees, the green is 90 degrees, the yellow is 90 degrees. The blue, which probably every one of you picked, is not 90 degrees. Why does that matter? Is because when we look at our statues, when we look at our models, when we look, we know that the actual angle of that leg is probably 120 degrees. So when we shift over and we measure this one, we don't measure, we remember it the way we saw it. So almost everyone in class draws that leg sticking straight out no matter where they're looking at, because they're not seeing. Here we go with this one. The results are everybody should have had a number 2, because tone is relative. So we can use our illusions to make tones, and we can make lights lighters and darks darkers. And we're going to talk about it in class, using every trick in the book to be able to create three-dimensional figures. Here's 2 Sharpies laying on a page. Well, how could we create the illusion of changing the shape of those Sharpies? Because we know what size they are. And if we were to measure across the top and bottom, I promise you those are both the same size. But when we lay that on a grid, look what just happened. The Sharpie on the right grew drastically. And if I were to ask you, probably 10 out of 10 people would say the Sharpie on the right is much, much larger than the Sharpie on the left. So again, in summary with this, drawing is an illusion. It's a process. It's something that we build up. I refer to drawing as from the general to the specific, like a good carpenter. There's a rough and finish, a machinist that's a rough and finishes his parts, always from the general to the specific. So as we get upstairs and we begin to draw inside the gallery, hopefully we will think of all of those things. We will think about the illusion that we create for ourselves and making the three-dimensional world come alive on our two-dimensional surface. So that's it. That was a quick little test. Hope you had fun. It's a follow-up to Peter Trippi. I hope anyone who's interested in taking courses, please, we make it fun. And we make it, and I learn as much from you as you learn from me. So thank you for letting me demonstrate that and give you a brief tutorial on how to see. Thank all of you, and hope to see you at the museums. Bye-bye.